name is Jonny Benjamin. 6 years ago, on the 14th of January 2008, at around 10 AM, I came to Waterloo Bridge to take my life. I was approached by a total stranger that stopped to talk to me and offered to buy me a coffee. He was the first person to give me hope, and his words actually prompted my recovery. Now I need your help to find him. I've called him Mike, although I'm not too sure if that's his real name. I was quite distressed at the time and I don't really remember too much about him. I do know that he was in his early 20s and he was on his way to work. Perhaps you remember a conversation with a friend or a colleague at the time, or maybe you were even on the bridge and you remember some detail about him. Whatever it is, please do get in touch and let us know. And please do spread this around, because the more people that see this, the more chance we have of finding him.
Hello and welcome to Understanding A Course in Miracles, where we've been exploring the themes of the course through children's stories and also sometimes through stories from the news. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the story of Jonny Benjamin, who is a mental health campaigner. His story can be found in the book The Stranger on the Bridge, and there's also a documentary film with the same title. So as usual, we're going to look at his story from the perspective of A Course in Miracles. But as a warning, this story does include the theme of suicidal crisis, but it is a very inspiring story. And there are a couple of reasons why I wanted to explore it from the perspective of the course. Firstly, because A Course in Miracles is about mental health and mental healing, and that's why it was gifted first to two medical psychologists back in the 1960s, and these two were the course's first students. And the second reason I was interested in looking at this story is because suicide is the biggest cause of death in the UK for men under the age of 45. But just returning briefly to the two psychologists who first received the course, Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford. One day when the two of them were working together, Helen Schuckman had a premonition that one of Bill Thetford's friends was contemplating killing himself. Now they were in New York and the friend was in Chicago. Helen says that she sent an earnest mental message to Bill's friend using the words, "The answer is life, not death." Afterwards, she dismissed the incident as imagination. But then later, when Bill Thetford phoned his friend to check if he was all right, the friend said that he was glad that Bill had called because he'd been very depressed and had even picked up a gun that afternoon. But then, for some unknown reason, he'd put the gun down. So with this context in mind, let's now look at the story of The Stranger on the Bridge.
Hi, I'm Jonny Benjamin and I'm from London. I'm 26. When I was 20, I was diagnosed with Schizoaffective Disorder, which is a combination of schizophrenia and depression. My mental health problems began when I was 10 years old. At that age, I started to hear a voice in my head, and I also believed that I was being followed everywhere that I went by cameras. The voice I was hearing in my head was more of a commentary, and I actually thought that it was an angel that had been sent down from heaven. And for the first few years that was happening, it was okay, I could deal with it. And then when I turned 16, that voice changed and it became more of a devil, and it began to really torment me, and it would challenge me to do certain things. So I might have to move an object from one place to the other, otherwise I'd be punished. And I thought this voice had complete control over me, and I was scared by it. At the age of 16, I started to feel really depressed, and I began having thoughts that were quite suicidal in nature, and I began to think that actually maybe life wasn't worth living anymore. But all this time I kept it to myself. I was just really scared about talking about these things with anyone around me. I had no concept of mental health anyway. I had no idea that I was going through a mental health issue. I was going off to university, and I thought that that would be the cure to what was going on in my head. I thought that would be the answer, and all my mental health problems would just end. And when I got to uni, I found my mental health just got worse. I began to get even more low. The voice in my head was just getting worse. And then when I was 20 years old, I reached the point of mental health crisis, and I had a psychosis where I believed I was being completely taken over by the devil, my body as well. And one night I went onto the streets and I just completely lost control, and I was shouting and screaming at people, and I went onto the dual carriageway that was near my house. I just started walking down it, and it just felt like I could control anything I was doing, anything I was saying. It was very scary, and I felt very suicidal as well. At that point I was taken to A&E, and when I got to A&E I saw a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said that there wasn't much that could be done because there wasn't any mental health beds available. And it was really disappointing, because I felt at that point I really needed some serious help. I felt I wasn't safe. My family GP admitted me to a psychiatric unit. There I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and depression, which combined is classed as schizoaffective disorder. I spent the next 6 weeks in a psychiatric unit. It was very scary at first, especially being diagnosed with schizophrenia. I was absolutely terrified, and I couldn't really comprehend it.
In an interview, Jonny says, "Essentially, I gave up as soon as I got that diagnosis. That diagnosis for me was the end of my life. At the age of 20, I was put into hospital, and I gave up hope very, very quickly. I went to this bridge about a month after my diagnosis, and essentially I was talked off the bridge by this stranger, and it was a real pivotal moment of my life. He offered me hope through his compassion and his kindness and his words of, 'You'll get through this, you'll get better,' positivity, and I hadn't experienced something like that before. And that did change things for me. It took years of recovery and therapy, but then 6 years after that incident on the bridge took place, I then launched a search to find that stranger, and it went viral. It was incredible."
I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone that's got behind the Find Mike campaign. Really overwhelmed by just how far and wide it's actually spread, and the fact it's been trending in Canada and South Africa, and we've had the most amazing messages of support from all over the world, and I'm so grateful and so touched by everyone getting behind it, so thank you. The campaign isn't just about finding this guy, it's about raising awareness of suicide. Suicide takes the lives of 3,000 people every single day in this world, and I know there's so much more that we can do to combat this. The campaign is also about spreading a message of hope, about letting people know there is another way, that they can get through it, and there is support out there. So please do keep spreading that message far and wide and supporting the campaign. We have had a number of leads that have come forward to say that they're actually Mike, and obviously my memory is really hazy from that day, so in order to verify which one it is, we're appealing to the London Ambulance Service that was there on the 14th of January 2008 on Waterloo Bridge. If you were a paramedic, or if you remember a conversation with one of the paramedics that was there on the day, then please do get in touch with us. Any information at all would be really, really useful. If you were a bystander as well that was standing on the bridge, then again, please do contact us if you've got any information. The smallest kind of clue could lead me to finding which one of these guys is actually the person I'm looking for. The website is www.rethink.org, and you can find all the information on there.
Shortly after Jonny launched his appeal, the wife of the man that had spoken to him on the bridge saw Jonny's appeal on Facebook and recognised the story.
This is a short message just to say a massive thank you. In case you don't already know, I actually found Mike, or Neil, as his name actually is, and I'm just so grateful to all of you out there that helped me to track him down and that got involved with the campaign, tweeting it and putting it on Facebook and starting that conversation about suicide and about mental illness. The whole point of the campaign was to raise awareness of suicide, which is the biggest killer of young men in this country and takes the lives of 16 people every single day. But I know there's so much more that we can do to change that, and you've already helped to start that, so thank you so much.
The simplest level of teaching appears to be quite superficial. It consists of what seems to be very casual encounters, a chance meeting of two apparent strangers in an elevator, a child who's not looking where he's going running into an adult by accident, two students who happen to walk home together. These are not chance happenings. Each of them has the potential for becoming a teaching-learning situation. Perhaps the seeming strangers in the elevator will smile to one another. Perhaps the adult will not scold the child for bumping into him. Perhaps the students will become friends. Even at the level of the most casual encounter, it is possible for two people to lose sight of separate interests, if only for a moment. That moment will be enough. Salvation has come. So, in A Course in Miracles, salvation can mean solution, solving, salvaging, as well as transcendence. And in the context of this story, salvation means solving or resolution. The second level of teaching is a more sustained relationship, in which, for a time, two people enter into a fairly intense teaching-learning situation, and then appear to separate. As with the first level, these meetings are not accidental, nor is what appears to be the end of the relationship a real end. Again, each has learned the most he can at the time. Yet all who meet will someday meet again.
When he walked through the door, I was just a bag of nerves. I've never been so scared in my whole life. Oh yeah. How you doing?
Good.
I'm ready.
How are you?
I'm alright.
Yeah?
I'm alright. You?
Good.
I didn't instantly recognise him, but there was something there. There was something that was familiar about him as he approached me.
I saw you on the TV. Yeah, I saw you speaking on the TV. Don't be nervous, honestly.
And then it was when we sat down, we began talking. There was a moment when everything just came back to me, and I could see him there on that bridge, and there he was now in front of me, and it was just overwhelming. It's just unbelievable, just, oh my gosh, like, you know.
Do you remember me?
Yeah, now I've seen you, like, it's all coming back.
Really?
You standing on the side of me, and
He definitely said, it's all coming back now, and I can remember your mannerisms, and I can remember your voice, and, you know, I can see you.
You can tell, like, he understands, and he doesn't judge, and just sits there with his kind of this big smile, and I think everyone could do with a friend like Neil.
The plan includes very specific contacts to be made for each teacher. There are no accidents in salvation. Those who are to meet will meet because together they have the potential for a holy relationship. They are ready for each other. So what started off as a chance meeting on Waterloo Bridge has now evolved into a friendship. Neil, who I believe is or was a personal trainer, also now works with Jonny on different projects, and they are advocates for mental health, helping a lot of people. So there has been a joining together for a wider good. And this joining together or collaboration in service of a wider good is what A Course in Miracles often refers to as a holy relationship.
Neil, you're just going about your day, going to work and everything. Had you ever sort of experienced anything to do with mental health issues yourself? Did you know anyone with mental health issues, or was this something like quite a new thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I was very much like any other person. in the population, I didn't know about suicide, mental health. Growing up, there was no education about it, and I think, as I think Jonny alluded to, like all the messages were quite negative about it. So I mean, all through my adolescence and my early adult life, no, I never had a conversation around mental health at all. So it was something that really only came into my life when I met Jonny.
And actually, I think this is a perfect example, because you weren't a mental health professional. Like you said, it wasn't something that you really knew about. You didn't know how to talk to someone with a mental health issue. But that particular day, you saved Jonny's life because of something that you said. So, Jonny, can you tell us about that? So you're in hospital, and then you decided to take your life. Talk us through what happened.
Yeah, so it was, I've been in hospital for a month, and this was January 2008, and 14th of January 2008, I was like, this is the day, and I ran away from the hospital, and it was all planned out, and I went to this bridge, and I went onto the edge of the bridge, and my memory is quite hazy of the day, but you know, I was standing there and in my own world, and then this stranger approached me and stood next to me and started talking, and at first I was like, go away, you know, just go away, there's nothing you can say, but he wouldn't. He was really grounded and really calm, and I wasn't, and I don't know, it was his energy, his energy, I think, at first, because I was really like, just because he was so calm, and I was, he just managed to get through to me eventually.
Do you remember what he was saying to you? Or just like, it was just a voice at the time, like just some guy talking to you?
Well, he was asking me lots of questions.
Okay.
Asking me lots of questions. Just trying to engage me in a conversation, I think. And, you know, as I said at first, I was like, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. But then, I don't know what it was. Well, actually, there was one thing. Basically, he told me where he grew up, and we grew up near each other.
Okay.
So
you found a common
ground. Yeah. So we had a little connection, and I don't know, I remember after that I kind of engaged a bit more with conversation, and we actually talked, and I did actually I did open up to him. I don't know why. Maybe being another guy as well, a young guy.
Yeah.
And he was, as I said, because he was so calm and patient, and I hadn't had the opportunity really I was in the hospital, and in the hospital it was difficult to talk, you know, people...
Just have a normal conversation.
Yeah, like nurses and stuff always rushing around, and here was this guy that was like, you know, I'm on my way to work, but it's fine, I'll stay put and just wait for you, and it was that. I just think he was very patient and committed, and well, actually one of the things that he said that was a real big thing for me was he said, don't be embarrassed, you know, don't be embarrassed about anything that's going on in your head, and that I think was really, I hadn't heard that before.
Wow. That's exactly what you needed, actually, because that's what you were feeling about the things that you were going through.
Yeah, I was really embarrassed. So for someone to say, don't be embarrassed, I think that was one of the key. That was one of the key things, yeah.
Neil, what was it that you saw? Because something interesting actually that Jonny said was that, you know, when Neil first approached him, it was like, no, I don't want to talk. At that point, I think most people kind of back off, but you, for some reason, you didn't. You just carried on talking. What was it that you noticed, and why did you stay after he'd said, I don't want to talk?
Well, when I first approached him, I didn't go up at all with the intention of like trying to talk somebody down, because I actually had no idea why he was sitting there. You know, it was like 90% in my head that somebody who might want to jump off the bridge or hurt themselves, but I didn't know. So that was the first thing, was just to kind of walk up calmly and say, you know, hi, and you know, why are you sitting here? And it was a moment, like I did completely like pierce his world, you know, like he was in a completely other place and he didn't see me approaching him. So, but yeah, like quite quickly it was obvious like why he was there, and he did, like he told me that he was there to jump, to hurt himself, to take his life, and all of a sudden, like everything went away, and sort of like cognition even went away. You just kind of really acting on instinct. You know, this was the first time that I would have ever been in that situation, and yeah, the instinct was just like, okay, well, you're the only person here now, and so you really have to like listen to what this person is saying. Because
were you scared?
Do you know, I tried to think about what emotions were going on at the time, but I think, like I said, like things just fall away, and you don't really experience too much emotion. You're very much just in the moment. I felt the biggest thing I felt was I felt a sense of empathy come over me. It was like a wave of empathy when he said to me, "Look, I don't want to be here anymore, and just like life is too much." And he started to open up about like why he was there. I just thought, God, you know, this, if I can do anything just to change his perspective just today, that would be great. And so that's when I think you make a split decision right there and then, actually, that no matter how long it takes, like I'll be there. Yeah. My main thought was like, I do need to get the professionals here, because I'm certainly not trained. You know, so my thought process was, if I can, you know, get him down onto the street, or we can go to a coffee shop or sit down. But I think the main overriding way to get there was that it would be a joint decision. Like I felt like I didn't want to, you know, try and grab him, or I didn't want to, you know, try and trick his mind or change his viewpoint. I just wanted to let him know that it's fine, whatever's going on, and I'm here to listen. And, you know, if you want to come on this journey with me, like, we can talk about it, and we can maybe look at, you know, resolving this together today. Don't worry about tomorrow, just today. And there were points in the conversation where his engagement level changed. And I think when I mentioned about, you know, sitting down and talking and just going away from that dangerous place, that's really when I noticed like a difference in, like I could see it in his eyes, you know, maybe there's another perspective today other than this, which then led him to kind of say, okay, I'm going to step over, and I thought I was one step closer to, you know, getting the profession, you know, us coming to a decision together to what we were going to do next.
So remembering, guys, that Neil is not he wasn't a mental health professional, but just engaging with Jonny made all of the difference. And that's exactly the point that we're trying to get across, for you not to be afraid. If you notice someone looking down, someone says something to you that sounds quite negative and you kind of suspect there's something wrong, it's good to actually talk to them.
And as I re-listened to this story, I suddenly remembered a time in my life when I was misdiagnosed with a mental health condition while I was in hospital receiving treatment for physical symptoms. I was then transferred to a mental health hospital after the physical illness had been treated. However, the staff at the mental health hospital seemed to immediately realise that there had been an error in the diagnosis, and I was only there for a few days before being discharged. But I'm now remembering that during the short time that I was there, I was treated quite differently from the other patients there who'd been given the diagnosis or the label of the disease. Everyone was being treated with compassion, but because the staff didn't believe that I had the same illness as the others, they were more relaxed with me, apologetic even, and just talked to me and treated me as if they thought I was mentally healthy, whereas some of the other patients were sometimes treated as if they were naughty children. I don't believe it was conscious behaviour on the part of the staff to just interact with me as if I was mentally healthy. And the day before I left, the chief consultant, head doctor, told me that I was fine, there was nothing wrong, and she said, when you recover from your physical symptoms, you can go out and live a full life, which was an immense relief for me. But I can't help wondering what the impact would have been like for the other patients there if they'd been treated in the same way as I'd been, if they had been told that there was nothing inherently wrong with them, that they could recover and that it was possible for them to go out and lead a full life. Let's get back to the story.
But now, the great thing is now that you're doing talks, all around the country, you're talking about suicide prevention, you're sharing your story, Jonny, and from that action that you took that day, so many lives, actually you can't even imagine how many lives have probably been saved from that. So, if people are watching now, guys, that are sort of saying, I don't know if I would be comfortable in that situation to say anything, what would you say to them?
Yeah, it's something that we get asked a lot, and I get asked because I was in that position.
Yeah.
And it's very simple actually to not worry about what to say, because you don't have to say anything. Mm-hmm. So listening is the key.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't ever feel like you need to give advice.
Yeah.
We know because through Jonny's experience and through our, travelling up and down and talking about this story, and we've met people who've been in the same position that Jonny's been in, who've been, and what they've said to us is they just want somebody to talk to, somebody to understand, and a safe place to do that. So the advice would be, you don't need to give advice, you just need to stick with it and listen and give that person the space to themselves, look at things a bit differently. And there are ways to signpost people. Mm-hmm. What we try to do now is educate organisations that we go into through these talks. Mm-hmm. Like we work alongside mental health charities. We work alongside government departments that offer resources to people, and we like to kind of take that information and make sure that where we go somewhere we can tell those people. So you can signpost people as well, which is really, really important to know.
Definitely. How about you, Jonny? What would you say to our viewers? What would you give?
No, everything that Neil said, but also I think reminding people that this is temporary. That this will pass. That's the thing that Neil. The real key thing that Neil said to me was towards the end of our conversation, and he was like, "I think you're going to get through this. I think you'll get better." And people need to hear that, because when I was in that place, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe I would get better, but just having someone
believe in you.
Yeah, someone believe in you, that can make such a difference. So just saying, this will pass, this will get better, I think it's simple, but it can make such a big impact.
Definitely.
The Course says the Holy Spirit is the only therapist. The Holy Spirit makes healing perfectly clear in any situation in which she is the guide. The human therapist can only let her fulfill her function. She needs no help for this. She will tell you exactly what to do to help anyone she sends to you for help, and will speak to them through you if you do not interfere. Trust her, for help is her function. If you do, you will see that it works. The results are more convincing than the words. The results will convince you that the words are true. By following the right guide, you will learn the simplest of all lessons. By their fruits ye shall know them, and they shall know themselves. Peace is an attribute in you. You cannot find it outside. All mental illness is some form of external searching. Mental health is inner peace.